Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Great to see you. My name is Brock Page, and I'm still doing random sports picks for fun. You also might be surprised as to who I'm picking in the early games today. If you just can't wait and you want to save yourself some time, check out my picks for this video in the description section below. Once again, I have to remind you that I am not a sports betting expert, nor do I implore you to take any of my picks. A wise man once said, good ain't free, and free ain't good. If for some reason you decide to use the free information on this program, you're utilizing it at your own discretion. And with that said, let's get into some early game picks for April 7th. First game I have for you, Atlanta at Cleveland. The betting opened up with the Cavaliers as the 9-point favorites and the total at 213.5. Since then, Cleveland's now minus 11.5 against the spread, with the total moving upward to 215.5. Currently, the Cavs are heavily favored, laying 909 on the money line. And at the moment, 56% of the bettors think the Hawks will get the job done. Speaking of Atlanta, they've done a fine job against a number as of late, covering 3 of their last 4. They're going up against a Cleveland team who's covered just 8 of 19 versus teams around 500. On a side note, 3 of both teams' last 4 games have gone over the total. All that said, I'm ready to make my picks as I'm in full agreement with the bettors on this one. I think the Atlanta Hawks at plus 11.5 will get the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I'm once again in full agreement with the bettors there as well, as I think this one goes over 215.5. And when it comes to the money line cash, I think the heavily favored Cleveland Cavs win this one outright in a close one. I'm also adjusting the line and taking Atlanta plus 19.5 as the first pick of my 8-point super teaser. Next game, Miami at Toronto. The betting opened up with the Raptors as the 5-point favorites and the total at 208.5. Since then, Toronto's now minus 5.5 against the spread, with the total points dropping down to an even 206. Currently, the Raptors are laying 230 on the money line, and at the moment, 59% of the bettors think Toronto will get the job done. Speaking of the Raptors, they've actually struggled against the number as of late, failing to cover in their last 3 straight. They're facing a Miami team who's an impressive 21-10 against the spread as the official road underdog. Before Wednesday's action, Miami games had gone under the line in 2 of their previous 3. All that said, I'm ready to make my pick as I think Miami at plus 5.5 will get the job done against the spread. And when it comes to the money line cash, I think the Toronto Raptors win this one outright by the slightest of margins. As you can tell, I'm foregoing the over-under on this game. Moving on, Detroit at Houston. The betting opened up with the Rockets as the 12.5-point favorites and the total points at 223.5. Since then, Houston's now minus 11.5 against the spread, with the total moving slightly downward to an even 223. Currently, the Rockets are heavily favored, laying 850 on the money line, and at the moment, 63% of the bettors think Houston gets the job done. Speaking of the Rockets, they've actually struggled against the number as of late, failing to cover in 3 of their last 4. Houston's also just covered 18 of 39 games at home this season. Before Wednesday night's action, both teams' games had gone under the total in 2 of their previous 3 matchups, respectively. All that said, I'm ready to make my pick as I think Detroit at plus 11.5 will get the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I'm once again in full agreement with the bettors as I think this one stays under 223. And when it comes to the money line cash, I think Houston wins it. I'm also adjusting the line and taking the under 231 as the second pick of my teaser. Next and final game for the show, New York at Memphis. The betting opened up with the Grizzlies as the 11-point favorites and the total points at an even 200. Since then, Memphis is now minus 13 against the spread, with the total dropping all the way down to 194. Currently, the Grizzlies are playing Goliath, laying 1,600 on the money line, and at the moment, 59% of the bettors think New York will get the job done. Speaking of the Knicks, they've been solid against the number as of late, covering 3 of their last 4. They're facing a Memphis squad who's failed to cover in 2 of their last 3. The Grizzlies also failed to cover in their first matchup with the Knicks. In addition to all that, 2 out of the Grizzlies' last 3 games have actually gone over the total posted points. All that said, I'm ready to make my pick, and I'm once again in full agreement with the bettors. I think the New York Knicks at plus 13 will get the job done against the spread. When it comes to the total points, I think this one goes over 194. And when it comes to the money line cash, I think Memphis wins it at home. I'm also adjusting the line and taking the New York Knicks plus 21 as the third pick of my 8-point super teaser. Just a reminder, my 8-point Sweetheart super teasers pay 5 to 6 and get graded as a loss should any game result in a push. You can find this exotic wager in several online sports books and in the beautiful state of Delaware. Well, folks, that is going to do it for me. Once again, I have to remind you that I am not a sports betting expert, nor do I implore you to take any of my picks. A wise man once said, good ain't free, and free ain't good. If for some reason you decide to use the free information on this program, you're utilizing it at your own discretion. Most importantly, if you're betting any of these games, do it safe, do it responsibly, and most important, have fun. For Brock Page predictions and sports picks, I'm Brock Page, and have yourself a positive day.